Bible, so it sounds like a preacher. Because I need help with that too sometimes. Anyway, we are, find the opening verse here. We're going to go to Genesis 16. And let me just say, pardon me ahead of time. And he's gone, isn't he? I was going to get you some more. I can tell I'm going to struggle with my little allergy battles before the hour's over. Hey, Brother Coiner.
Yes, sir.
You're a real nice guy, you know that? Just wanted to share that. And
I don't know that very often.
I was wondering if I could get a glass of water. I meant to get one from Joe before he slipped out of here, or get one myself. I don't know what.
Mine's still fine cup.
Yeah, that would be the hard part.
There should be bottles of water in there.
I will be needing it. That weather and oh my gosh. It's bad out there. If I've been blowing my nose, I've been trying 2 or 3 times in the middle of the night. I just, of course it started, I ate, I fell asleep for about 2 hours and woke up about, I don't know, midnight, 1, 2, something like that. And I ate, and then about an hour later, after going back to sleep, and I don't usually struggle with this, but it has happened before, but I just, if I eat too much and I'm flat, you know, I start, it's like, I guess you call it reflux. It just, it's like all the muscles let loose and everything that's your stomach wants to get to your throat, you know, when you're sitting in the middle of the night and you're startled, you don't even know what's going on yet because you're asleep. And I spent the night, it just scorches my whole esophagus up, and I'm like, the whole next hour I'm, you know, coughing. And that whole scenario happened about 2 or 3 times throughout the night, so I don't know what my deal was. But anyway, we're going to look at Genesis 16.
Instead of one of their styrofoams are gone.
Oh, okay.
There's the bottled water.
Bottled water.
Yeah, there should have been. It's okay, you can go ahead and use that.
Yeah, that's fine. It's still H2O. It's fine. Genesis 16. Genesis 16. I'm going to start with verse 1. And I'm going to go down to verse 14. So it's a little long, but I'm waiting on water, so that's okay. Genesis 16, verse 1 says, Now Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children, and she had an handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. Thank you, brother. That's Sarah. And verse 2, And Sarai said unto Abram, Behold now, the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in unto my handmaid, it may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abram hearkened to the voice of Sarai. And Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar her maid, the Egyptian, after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to her husband Abram to be his wife. And he went in unto Hagar, and she conceived, and when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. And Sarai said unto Abram, My wrong be upon thee, I have given my maid into thy bosom. And when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes. The Lord judge between me and thee. But Abram said unto Sarai, Behold, thy maid is in thy hand. Do to her as it pleaseth thee. And when Sarai dealt hardly with her, she fled from her face. And the angel of the Lord found her by a fountain of water in the wilderness, by the fountain in the way to Shur. And he said, Hagar, Sarai's maid, whence camest thou, and whither wilt thou go? And she said, I flee from the face of my mistress Sarai. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, Return to thy mistress, and submit thyself under her hands. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, Behold, thou art with child, and shalt bear a son, and shalt call his name Ishmael, because the Lord hath heard thy affliction. And he will be a wild man. His hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him. And he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. And she called the name of the Lord that spake unto her, Thou God seest me. For she said, Have I also here looked after Have I also here looked after him that seeth me? Wherefore the well was called Bir-Lahai-Roi. Behold, it is between Kadesh and Bered. I'm going to stop right there. This is kind of it's a little lengthy, and but we're through it now as far as reading it. But and it's not. It's kind of an odd way to start a message too, I suppose. And I'm not real sure if I'm going to get all the way through this or not with the notes I have in front of me. But I want to first of all just set the context. First of all, we're focusing on Hagar is alone. Now we look at this story and we look at Sarai and that's a whole other message, and that's fine. But I mean we usually look at Sarai, and Sarai's barren, and she's trying to fix the situation, whatever, call it to the Lord, and this and that and the other. Anyway, it all kind of centers from Sarai. We're focusing more on Hagar now. Today is how I feel we should go with this today. And the reason I'm doing that is Hagar is alone. She's frightened. She's feels anyway like she's certain God is nowhere to be found, nowhere around. In her trial, God knew exactly where she was. He saw every move that she made, and He came to her to comfort and give hope. And while there are a lot of things, my throat is really congested this morning. All right. While there are a lot of things in this universe that I can't tell you much about. I can tell you about God and the fact that God is a God who sees. That's the main crux of what I'm getting at. We have a God who sees. And He does a lot more than see, but I don't have time to do a whole series this morning. And there's a lot to say just about the fact that God sees. I can't tell you much in the realm of God. I can't tell you but a fraction. Can't even, just scratch the surface about the things of God and the things I'm even able to even begin to relate to, let alone comprehend, let alone convey to somebody. There's so much more to God than what we can even get our brains around. But God, one little thing about that whole realm, one little thing about that is that God is a God who sees. And there are times that we tend to feel, we don't always think of it like this. By the way, I got new glasses. Did you see that? I can see now.
I'm glad you did.
So when I skip an entire verse song leading, I won't have an excuse next time. Anyway, the God who sees. I just had to share that. There are a lot of things pertaining to God that we can't even begin to explain. Hagar was amazed that God cared about Hagar. That's an angle I don't think we typically look at it from that direction. But she was so amazed that she called his name Elroy. We'll see that in a little bit, which means thou God seest me. She named the well that was mentioned here, the well of the living one that seest me, which was Beer Lahairoi. The same God who saw Hagar, the same God who saw, I'm trying to think of examples of people in the Bible right now that in their eyes they were minuscule, they were alone, they were, the one with the juniper tree, that was...
Elijah?
Yeah, I think I get Elijah and Elisha, I get those names mixed up. But yes, he turned, he did a whole 180 there at one point. He let a woman scare him away, and he had a part. Jonah's a good example too. I mean, these people that, they ended up at one point or another serving God in a big way, but they felt that there was some point in there where they felt like God wasn't even within 100 light years away. They just felt like they were alone and they weren't even seen by God. That's how they felt. That was their perception. We know that's not true, but that's how they felt. And that's the reason we're looking at this. He knows where we are. He knows what you're going through. Whatever it is, whether good or bad. And often it seems bigger when it's bad, but he knows what's going on. Whether we've been talking to him a lot about it, whether we haven't been talking, whether we're walking close to him, whether we've been kind of straying lately, he still sees exactly where you are. You might feel like you're alone. You might not be hearing him because sometimes we're not listening real good, but he still sees where you're at. Verse 13 there we read a minute ago says, thou, God, seest me. For she said, have I also here looked after him that seeth me? I would like to just focus on God's omniscience. Now, omniscience. How many of us know what omniscience is? You've got omniscience, omnipotence, and omnipresence. Omniscience, God knows, is the quality that God knows everything. Omnipotence is the quality that God can do anything. Omnipresence is the quality that God is everywhere. Now there's almost kind of qualify a little bit here, and I don't want to make it complicated, but I know when I was out in Swink, and I did this just to get a reaction, but I mean, I looked at it was a smaller class that morning out there, but we had, we were looking at, I forget what we were looking at, to be honest. That shows I'm not omniscient, but I'm not, we were looking at what God knows. What God can do. That's what it was. What God can do, and what God can do and what God knows. Both, I think, is what we were looking at. One in Sunday school, and I pointed out. I said there is one or two things that God cannot do, and I got a couple of men in the church looked at me like big eyes like that, and I said, when you ask for him to forgive your sin, he said he will remember them no more. And he chose to do that. He can do that. He will do that. He promised it. If you've gone to him and you've asked for his forgiveness about something, I got saved when I was 17. I can go to God and say, hey, back when I was 16, do you remember? And he could stop me mid-sentence and say, nope, I do not remember that. That was not you. I do not, because he said he will remember my sins no more. Not to say I won't sin again in the future. It's not like it's not still a daily struggle. We're human. But I'm talking about those sins back then. He does. He chose. He could have remembered him, but he chose not to. And he also is a God who cannot lie. So, I mean, the point is, anything he cannot do, he chose to not be able to do. And now those are his parameters that he set.
Yeah.
Those are, it's kind of, I don't know. I'm still, I don't know if I like the way this is worded or not. I've heard it said, before, is God so powerful that he can make a rock so big that he can't move it, or something like that, or lift it, or something like that. I forget how that gets. I've heard that before. Is God so powerful that he can create a rock that's so big that it's too big for him to even move it? I mean, it's that circular thinking there's not really a point to that. But I mean, you see, the things that he says he can't do are only the things that he set that parameter. So, all right, we're looking at what we're going through. Let me move on here. The certainty of his omniscience. There is a certainty of his omniscience in his person. The very concept of deity revolves around the ability to see creation. The Bible spells out the finer points, but I mean, you can't look at this world and not, think this just kind of fell together by happenstance. This is something that was created by a creator. The whole universe was something that it's got too much organization to it. It's got too much, there's too much, I mean, there was a being. You might not know all the ifs, ands, and buts, and yeses and nos about God. You might not have ever gone into church in a Sunday school or a service before, but you still cannot look around this world and think this just fell together. I mean, this doesn't just happen. Something, whether it was just fell together or was where does that first atom come from? I've heard people who were atheists, I guess, and some people have that were Big Bang Theory advocates or what have you, and talk about this just happened because of this and whatever. They're probably circular thinking. They're explanations of how things are and what all. Really, all you got to do is back up and ask one question. Where did that first atom come from? Something had to create that first little atom or molecule or whatever that existed. But God is one who sees. He was the very concept of deity revolves around his ability to see his creation. When we breathe his name, we're invoking that name as the one who sees. Spurgeon said, he says, it were as impossible to conceive of a God who did not observe everything as to conceive of a round square. That's he always has a unique way of putting anything. But it's true. In his presence, God knows everything, not only because of who he is, but also because of where he is. The psalmist reminds us of his omnipresence. Psalm 139, verses 1 through 12. I'm not going to read all that, but it's a good place to look if you want to look at an example of that. He does not see us from far, but he is ever with us. It's not like God is over there on the other side of the sky looking at us from over there. He is right here, right now. He's over there too, because that's how big he is. But he's over here. He's right here with us. He never leaves us. He never forsakes us. He never stops loving us. He never stops knowing what's best for us. and watching us, and it would be easier to escape from your own skin than to escape from God. He's just great like that. That is in reference to His presence. Also His power. He is an all-seeing God in His power. God knows everything, not just because of who He is and where He is, but also because of what He does. Our God is not disconnected from His creation. He sees the sparrow that falls over on the other side of the earth, but He knows the very number of the hairs on Jonica's head. I tried to pick a head that has a lot of hair. And
I'm right here.
yeah, that was the problem. And right there with you, brother. But you have probably more on your face than on my. Anyway, all right. It is in His purposes. Let's move on. Yes. In His purposes, God knows everything because He is God, because He is everywhere, because He controls all things. It is also clear that He knows what will take place before it ever happens. Isaiah 46, I don't have time to read all those, but Isaiah 46 talks about it. Psalm 135 verse 6, Daniel 4 verse 35. God, how does God know what will happen before it takes place? One way is He plans it. Ephesians 1:11 talks about that. But nothing can happen in the world that is not a part of God's eternal, perfect, unstoppable plan. Now, God gives us, let me clarify, God gives us the power of choice, the power of volition. He allows us human beings to have a power of choice. We can choose things, and we can choose good things, and we can choose bad things, but giving us that power was part of His plan that I was talking about. And He always knows what's coming, no matter which way we go with that choice. He knows which way is coming. I don't know. That does a lot for me. Knowing that God is on the throne, I mean, you just can forget everything else, and I'm still happy as could be. Knowing God is on the throne, He is everything is under His eye, His ever-watchful eye. Everything is under His care. He is in control of everything. Nobody's knocking Him off the throne. Hasn't happened yet. Won't happen ever. And that's enough to make my day right there. We could just go home right now. We're not going to, but we could. That's a blessing to me. That puts the comfort in Romans 8:28, that we hear quoted often, But a God who plans all things is surely able to know all things. The consequences of, we looked at the certainty of His omniscience, the consequences of His omniscience. I'm going to skip that part. His knowledge of you is personal. He knows us like nobody else knows us.
Yeah.
He knows us better than we know us. He knows me better than I, know me. And whether you know Him at all or how well you know Him, He still knows you better than you know yourself. He created you. He wired you. He knows, the ways of the world. You put the ways of the world to the test, how the lost seek happiness and how The godly Christian who knows God, I mean, the one, seeks happiness, it's two whole different arenas there. You've got people who are not saved. They don't know the joy of God. They don't know the happiness. They don't know the comfort. They don't know the one who loves them like no other. And they don't know, and they just look at world, flesh, devil, because that's what's in front of them all the time. And they look at that, and they just use the ways of the world to try and figure, how can I be happy? Well, there's alcohol. Well, there's drugs. Well, there's this, there's that. And all the things the world will come up with. And that's what makes sense to the lost person. Makes sense to the lost person. And then you've got the saved person who knows God. God wired you. I mean, there are things that bring happy. I can't even put it into words. But because God, made me. He wired me. He knows. There are chemicals in our I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I know it's the what do you call it? Not theory, not the philosophy. I know that there are chemicals in our bodies. We are human beings. There are chemicals in our bodies, and those chemicals can be just a little bit off, and it will affect you greatly. I had that experience last October. I had no idea. Potassium. If potassium gets just a little bit low, you're going to look like you're on drugs for a week. I mean, you all thought that's what was going on, I think, for a little bit. Yeah. Some of y'all. Yeah. But I mean, we didn't know what was going on. It was just gradually happening, and we had no reason to understand. Well, I'd never experienced that before. And I was falling down. I would stand up, nothing's touching me. I'd fall down. I'd hit my head on the wall. We went to the funeral home. We didn't get started yet. I fell asleep right there at the table. I mean, I was a mess. And it went beyond my wife passing the day before. But just a little bit off. And I've learned since then that even high potassium can do some of the same things, I think, but can do things just as crazy to you. And I mean, your potassium, and there's other ones. I want to say iron. I don't know if it's iron. People get anemic. I know that affects them. Yeah. There's another big one. I'm forgetting what it is. But if you're just a little bit off, it can make the difference between you looking like a totally normal human being and looking like you need to be in a padded room. I mean, it's all just a little bit of chemical, difference there. It's weird. I mean, God wired us that way, and He knew what He was doing when He did that. But, if something makes me happy, it's because God wired me. God made me that way. I can't explain to you, well, when this happens, it causes me to be happy because this chemical goes up so much. I don't know all that. God knows all that. I don't have to know why. The point is, God made me. God knows what makes me happy. He likes to bless me. He likes to bless all His children. He likes us to be happy. Yeah, there's things we have to go through. Yes, there are trials in life. Yes, He has, He gets the glory, but I mean, and everybody's life is different. I understand that. But, I just have to know, hey, God wired me. God knows me. I can't explain every little thing under a microscope why this makes me happy, but God made me. He knows what He's doing. He can do everything. He sees me. That's all that matters. I don't have to explain it. I mean, it's the world without God. They look at the Christian and they think that's what I did. When somebody first presented the idea of me letting God into my life, that was my first thought, was everything I like to do. I don't know a lot about this, but I know that everything I like to do, I'm not going to be able to do anymore. And then the things I don't want to do, I am going to have to do. That was my first hunch. And I, you know, it's a long story how that transpired, but anyway, you know, once I got past that and let God into my heart, you know, it wasn't like that. I enjoyed the things that I thought I was not going to enjoy. And I don't enjoy the things that I thought I would need in order to enjoy life. It crisscrossed on me. And I can't explain why outside of the fact that God made me. God wired me. God did that. And that's all I need to know. I don't need to be able to explain it. So, but I'm out of breath. I'm not even song leading. And it's quarter to 11 yet. I got to catch my breath here. Consequences of His omniscience. Looked at the certainty of it. The consequence of it. I've got one more, it's quarter till, so I'm going to move on to the third one. The comfort. The comfort of His omniscience. When we think of the omniscience of God, we often think of just the negative side. We think about how God sees everything that we think, say, or do, and we let it bother us sometimes. But in reality, there is the complete knowledge of God is one of the most comforting truths there is. There is, I didn't write it down here, but there's a song, He's Watching Me. I'm not talking about the chorus book. I'm talking about Gaither Vocal Band, I believe. But it's, you know, He's watching me. Jupiter for a pillow. It's a lot like this one, but it's not. It's different. Anyways, but he goes on singing that how He's watching me. And the whole theme of the song is He's watching me. God is watching me. And to some people that first sounds eerie, you know, because we don't, you know, because when they first hear that, often they're not up to any good yet. They don't know God yet. You're not, if you don't know God, you don't want anybody watching you, you know, because you're probably not up to the good. But if you know God, you know you need His protection. You know you need His strength, His love, His comfort, His strength, His courage, everything that you need to live life and live it well and glorify Him and be happy. And you know, He has all that for you. But He's got to see you, like we've been talking about the whole hour. Him seeing you, He has to see you. He's watching you, and He's watching you like a loving parent, if you will, that watches you and is making sure you don't fall, or if you do, He picks you back up, whatever. You know, He's taking care of you because He's watching you. He sees, and I'm glad, let me just say that, I'm glad God hears me when I pray. Aren't you?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there are times we can get discouraged, and I'm talking as a Christian. I mean, we can get discouraged, we can get down. I have seen that, and I'm sure there's people who've seen it worse than I have, but I have seen it, and I get so down and so discouraged when I let that happen, and I will pray, and I'll feel like, you know, I feel like it's not even hitting the ceiling. I know it is. I know He hears me. I know He's there with me. But how we feel and what truth is not always the same. You know, emotion, you know, perception, which the devil tries to turn into deception. He will try and deceive you a little bit, make it feel different than it really is, what have you. But He will, you know, God hears us when we pray, even if it feels like He's not. You know, He reads. I mean, we don't even have to say it. We can just think it, you know. And he's there reading our thoughts. Something the devil can't do, by the way, if you think about it. Just a little food for thought there. But he, even that, when we, he sees us, he watches us, he hears us praying, he sees the sufferer. Getting back to Hagar, briefly, in these verses, Hagar is suffering, and she has been rejected, abused, hated. She's all alone and on the run. Her heart is broken. She doesn't know what to do in her pain. And I'm fast forwarding a lot of the story, but we, for the most part, those of us in here know the story, I think. But she encounters the God who sees, and no person sees everything. No person sees it all. There are people who suffer. There's people who have pain and heartache. They keep well hidden from those around them. But there is, we can take heart and reach out to God. People around us might not see what's going on. They might not understand. But there is a God in heaven. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you're going through. I'm not saying I've gone through worse. I'm just saying that God knows, no matter how bad it is, what you're going through, God knows all about it. God knows how to help you. And God knows how to carry you through. You might be down. It might take a while to get back up. But He can reach down and pick you up. Just reach out to Him. And let Him lift you up, stand you up on your feet, and you can keep a righteous man. I don't know how that's worded, but a righteous man gets knocks down and stands up again 7 times. I don't have that word for word. I don't have it in front of me, but you know what I'm talking about.
A just man.
Just man, yeah. What he says. God sees us. He sees. There's no shortage of misery out there. There's no, in this world we live in, there's no shortage of pain. But God sees us when we're living in it. He sees us when we are, we are done unjustly. You could I could spend a whole hour talking, giving true accounts of other people, there's no shortage of unjust doing in this world. It's all over the place. And there's no shortage of people who would knock us down when we're already knocked down. There's no shortage of, pain. There's no shortage of difficulties. There is no, shortage of a need for God. You never know what's going to happen next. You need God. You need to reach up and get God's help forward. And He sees you when that happens. I wouldn't even know where to start. If I started to reference my own life, I don't even know where to go. But there's times God knows how much you're hurting before you're even feeling it yourself. He knows what's coming around the corner. And He knows what you need. And there's times we think we know what's going on. We think we know what we need, and it's not. It's not at all. He sees the sinner. He sees, Hagar. Real quickly, Hagar was an Egyptian. She was a heathen, a pagan, a sinner. In their eyes, yet the eye of God was on her. She ran away, but she could not get away from the gaze of God. And God loved her just like God loved anybody else. We look at this story a little different from a different angle, but my focus is God sees us. That's what I'm trying to get across, if anything.
Right.
In one sentence, God sees us. You're going to feel like He doesn't see you sometimes. And even then, He still sees you. He doesn't stop loving you. He doesn't stop caring for you. He doesn't stop watching you. You go to sleep at night, and He's still watching you. And, He takes care of you. What's amazing is he can do that with all of his children, all over the world, all at one time. That's
Right.
That's wonderful. And I thank God that he sees everything. It might be, that, the devil's at your door, or he's trying to knock you down, or whatever. I don't know. We all have different situations in our lives, different things going on. God sees us. God cares. You might need to talk to him about some things. Maybe he's just trying to. I've learned this. Sometimes he's trying to just get us to talk to him some more, or that would help anyway. Whether it's the main objective, but if he, when he reaches down and helps us with our situation, we're gonna be closer to him on the other side of the situation. When we get through it, we're going to be closer to him. We're going to be blessed. He's going to get the glory. And he was watching us the whole time. And so it's just, I find comfort in that. Just knowing that God loves us and is watching us and just cares for us. And he never fails. He never, ever fails. We might need to talk to him about some things. Open up your heart, whether now or next hour in the preaching hour, whatever. Just open up your heart, even before the preaching starts. I don't know what Brother Joe's got in mind for preaching, but when he starts the service, just open up your heart to God. Say, God, just open up my mind and heart. Let me hear everything without distraction. Let me focus on your word and just get everything from you to have for me today. And just watch him, just open up and watch him bless. And let's have a word of prayer. Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for your love. And thank you for your goodness to us, Lord. And I want to thank you, Lord, for how you've blessed us, Lord, and you've carried us through. And we've had a lot of storms in the last... I'm not talking about the weather. I'm talking about the last year or two, Lord. A lot of us. We've had some tough times. A lot of different people. And just pray that, thanking you for keeping our church together, Lord, weathering that storm. And you're always watching us. You're always there. You're always seeing us, Lord. We just pray for your blessings and your glory to go with it, Lord. And just pray. There's a lot of different stories in the Bible we could have extracted this from, Lord. But I just, the point is you watch us. You see us, and you never take your eyes off us. You never stop loving us. And I just want to praise you for that, Lord. Help us to give you glory through the day. Bring us back tonight, too, Lord, in Jesus' name.
Amen.